116th Contact, Saturday, October 28, 1978, 11:53 am, pages 296, 301. At the beginning of the contact, Quetzal first tested his device constructed for me, but it didn't fulfill its purpose. Quetzal says it is very unfortunate that the device isn't functioning in the way that we hoped for. Indeed, it is fully functional, but for reasons that are incomprehensible to me, it brings you no relief. Billy says, according to what prospects have you manufactured it, then? Quetzal says, according to the exact analytical recordings of our apparatuses over your body. Billy says, then the worm is just stuck in the pipeline somewhere. Quetzal says that will be the case, and I will also find it out. Therefore, don't be anxious, for under all circumstances, I will make the device functional for you, even if I myself can no longer bring it to use with you together. Billy says, you speak in riddles, my son. Quetzal says, we will understand ourselves equally, once I have explained everything to you. But in any case, it will be so that you will be connected to this device in each case by a robotic apparatus, which will come to you and also ask you to wait at a certain place for this. Billy says, I really don't understand you. Quetzal says, I have decided to maintain no further contact with you for the time being because everything in your group has become exuberant to me. I have held council with all our parties about this, and they are all agreed with it. This means that I have come to you today for the last time and that no further contacts will take place any more in the future. Billy says, so, and why that, if I may, at least, still ask? What things have I now messed up, that you act in such a way? And does that mean that no one at all will come in the future? Quetzal says that may very well be. Concerning your last question. Concerning the first two questions, I have to tell you the following: various circumstances caused me to make a very detailed analysis of all group members again in the last days, which in most cases, unfortunately, yielded very deplorable results. These results prove absolutely unambiguously that the intrigues in the community still exist as before, and that recently, even certain tendencies of a seizure of power appear again, which are divided into various peculiar forms. At the same time, the faults with you yourself are not minor, for you haven't already taken thorough measures recently to prevent such unfair machinations. You have been too soft in this respect and haven't brought that logical force to application, which you would have had to bring to application. Billy says, so your words mean that I have simply failed, right? Quetzal says that is of correctness, for you haven't taken the members of your group into those tight trains into which you would have had to take them. Through this, it has arisen that the bonds of solidarity of the group members among one another are very much looser than what was the case thousands of years ago. Also, the majority of the group members is still so caught up in itself in many matters, as this was the condition before they came to today's existing group. This means that the same selfishness, the same strength of jealousy, and many other negative things are still present in them like before with the old personalities, by what means a true group union can occur just as little as also a useful cooperation. But this means that the task cannot be fulfilled, and thus, it is useless to watch with hopes even only a single day longer, because every attempt at an improvement is nipped in the bud. The group members are not willing to change their thoughts, their emotions, and their conduct so that it could lead to a success. I won't mention any names of the group members to you, as this would only lead to contentious actions in the group, but I would like to mention some things, which every group member should think about. There is such a group member, who is strongly occupied with thoughts of taking a leading position in the center and in the group itself, which cannot go on, however, in any case. A group such as this, provided charged with such an important task, may never come under such a leadership but must be controlled from the community itself through uniform adoptions of resolutions. It may never come to the fact that an individual can bring in a leadership or guidance himself in such a form. A leadership of this group solely means that it concerns a guidance, which is, in all aspects, only of an advisory form and which, besides, must also be formed organizationally, in order to be able to direct the necessary works. Except you, however, such a force presently does not exist in the group, for not one single group member has the necessary capabilities to take on such a guidance. You, on the other hand, you who hides all the capabilities for this in yourself, You have shamefully neglected your duty in the way that you have not acted hard enough to curb the unfair machinations, the petty jealousies, and the egoism, etc. in the individual group members, and to speak to their conscience, because so. Billy says, but now, make a point. You talk just as if I haven't sufficiently. Quetzal says you shouldn't interrupt me, please, because it truly is as I say to you, for otherwise, everything would have already recently changed for the better, which you. Billy says, now that's enough for me, damn it, and now, don't say again that I shouldn't interrupt you. I'm not standing here just to listen to your damn reproaches. I have truly tried everything possible to teach everyone a somewhat different way of thinking and acting. But when one's constantly and repeatedly do the exact opposite of what I say and explain, then it's really not my fault. Quite simply, I've become tired of the damn drama with these kindergartners, and now, I hold my tongue. I'll no longer interfere in these things, and it will stay like that. If everything should now just go to hell, then it just should. In the future, I will no longer attend to my work at all, rather, I'll fulfill an old dream of mine and write fairy tales, period. Quetzal says that is your concern alone, for by the fact that you aren't able to get the group members on the right track, you also don't fulfill your duty and bring our entire mission into question. But this means that everything has become simply useless and our contacts don't make sense anymore. You couldn't change even the malicious egoism of the group members and their self-centered sense, whereby a core group membership for all newly interested parties fails from the start. In various group members, the self-centeredness is so pronounced that they presume themselves to be more educated and of more value than those who newly come to the group. They believe themselves to be more knowing and to have more rights, and thereby shock honestly interested parties, who would gladly like to be included in the core group. But instead of one being helpful to these interested parties, one goes against them and denies them the necessary information in the sense of an association spirit, as this is, unfortunately, common among the Earth human beings, namely that only the association members would have a right to more detailed information, etc. As it is, my friend, new group members could never be found, who would work themselves into their tasks, because they all feel shocked already, before they even have the thought of making a request for reception into the core group. Just as little cordiality and sincere love and necessary sense of belonging are offered to these people as also to the occasional interested parties and other visitors, etc. They are all treated as strangers and as dumb, unknowing outsiders, before whom also a rather primitive secretiveness is operated, coupled with an unworthy arrogance, which doesn't exactly contribute to the fact that a confidentiality can arise. So this is true in general, and the case with the German-born Rudolf serves as an example, who is very interested in all things but who is simply ignored by all group members, though his interests run toward a group membership. Certainly, it is, at the same time, of correctness that various aspects are present with him, which he must change very quickly if he is to belong to the core group, but the already existing group members likewise have faults, which they must still resolve. Indeed, there are some very bad things in this Rudolf, which he must discard very quickly and even immediately if he wants to be received into the core group, but that gives no right to the already existing group members to suppress him and set him apart. Through this dumb, infamous conduct, which I can only describe as primitive, it has also happened that the monstrosity could appear, that two group members from the time a few thousand years ago have been forfeited for the present time, as this has proven itself in the last days. The two were destined, through their own and our determination, to take on greater tasks in the present group area and in the fulfillment of the mission, which is why they were also interested recently in the actual concerns of the group and all of its overall connections and tasks, and appeared in the center for the monthly group meetings. Due to most existing group members' unbelievably primitive and infamous conduct discriminating against the cause of our mission, however, both of them were so shocked and downright disgusted that they withdrew themselves and now go their own ways. And as our extremely precise clarifications relating to this have revealed, there is no longer even only the smallest possibility that the two will once again get in contact with the existing group. Precisely these two were those who already possess very high values and who would have been of utmost importance for the moral and togetherness-related development of the group. But due to the outrageous and already bordering on dissolute and malicious, malignantly primitive conduct of most existing group members, this was thwarted and destroyed, and indeed, without the possibility of a reparation, as I already explained. Therefore, the group has destroyed itself to such an extent that we can no longer continue to work with it, for there is no hope anymore for a change. For more than 3 years now, we have tried to be helpful to you all and also to give you all guidance for your lifestyle and your living together with other human beings, but everything was useless and for nothing. Most of the group members still conduct themselves as boorishly as ever toward their fellow human beings, and in no way do they strive to restrain their emotions, such as selfishness, jealousy, lies and secret observances, spying on and mocking and insulting the other group members and outsiders, etc. No efforts are made to live in accordance with the true recommendations or to follow the rules of regulation, which have been specially prepared by the High Council for the group. Very regrettably, it is to be said that only very few have changed themselves for the very best and strive in the deepest form for an internal change. There are, however, only 3 of these, of whom, however, also only one exceptional case strives for everything so far, in the most sincere and deepest measure, that very good and great successes are recognizable. This is a deplorable fact that can no longer be overlooked. Under these circumstances, there is no longer a possibility for us to continue to remain in contact with you because our task is also destroyed by this destruction. Billy says, is that your last word? Quetzal says yes, unfortunately. Billy says, then is there really no possibility anymore? Quetzal says there would be this possibility, but it no longer seems to be acceptable under these circumstances. Billy says, then at least tell me this possibility. Quetzal says it would be useless because no change should be expected of the group members. They would continue to live in such stubborn doing, according to their own senses and emotions controlling them, as they have done this up to now. Billy says, and if they would, nevertheless, still pull themselves together now? If they would finally act in accordance with what is right according to creational laws. Quetzal says, then the possibility of another but definitely last chance would be given. However, we can't let ourselves get involved in that because everything points clearly and precisely to the fact that there will be no change to the better. Indeed, only the 3 would strive further for everything in a sincere or halfway sincere form, as I've just explained this of the 3. Billy says, do you really believe that? Quetzal says, with great probability, this is so. Our probability calculations resulted in an 83.4% probability that it would be so. We can't let ourselves get involved with such a high negative value number, however, as this would also endanger all our other works. Billy says, I understand, but please tell me the possibilities, nevertheless. Quetzal says, as you wish, but it will be useless. We are breaking off our contacts, that is certain, but we would be prepared for renewed contacts if true, deeply founded changes arouse in all those points that are objectionable. This would mean, however, that the contacts could, under certain circumstances, first be taken up again in several years, if you would get through the time until then, but it doesn't look like that, according to your very bad state of health and if our device shouldn't help you. But on the other hand, there is no longer enough time so that we could bear such a long contact interruption, because in 4 months at the very latest, everything would have to have progressed so far that our whole mission could fully and entirely and finally proceed in sufficient measure. But if that is not the case, then a renewed contact no longer makes sense. On the other hand, which is just as serious, it has resulted from the boorish and infamously primitive conduct of most existing group members that 2 very important and predetermined new core group members have withdrawn themselves due to the shocking effects impressed upon them, and these will not turn again, not with all of our available means, to your group and, therefore, to our mission. This means that the 2 important persons would otherwise have to be replaced, but there isn't the possibility of pulling any other persons out of the mass of terrestrial humankind, which is why they would have to be witnessed as descendants in your group, but for this, we would have to let special arrangements be issued. Unfortunately, this would also delay everything in the execution of our mission, by what means everything would shift and doubtfulness would appear as to whether the overall mission could still be fulfilled at all in this manner. but this would also mean, under certain circumstances, that you would have to give up your center in order to begin everything anew at another place, but certainly the fewest group members would muster up the will for that. Billy says, nice, but tell me, how do you imagine that simply two descendants would have to be witnessed, and what special determinations should there be? Quetzal says we would first have to let these things be clarified by the High Council, but it would certainly look like this, that for this task, a young married couple would be determined, or else a virgin, who would